The breach alarm screamed through Meridian Station like a dying thing. Dominic Vale's fingers flew across the engineering console, rerouting power, sealing corridors, watching the temperature readings climb into the red. Deck 12 was burning. Not just burning, melting. The composite alloy couldn't withstand plasma fires. And someone in cargo had been stupid enough to store compressed hydrogen near the heat exchangers. Through the reinforced glass of the control booth, he could see the corridor beyond. Shadows moved through the smoke. People running. Not running fast enough. Vale. The voice crackled through his headset. Overseer Malkin, safe in the command tower 3 levels up. Status. Fires spreading to the oxygen recyclers. If it reaches the main tanks, how long to contain? Dominic's eyes tracked the schematic. Deck 12 connected to 13 through 6 access points. 5 were already compromised. That left the main pressure door in corridor J7, the same corridor where thermal sensors showed 15. Maybe 20 people still evacuating. Vale, I asked you a question. If I seal J7 now, we save the recyclers. Station survives. Silence. Then, do it. There are still people. I said do it. Dominic's hand hovered over the control panel. The door mechanism was manual override only, a safety feature that now felt like a curse. He'd have to go down there. He'd have to look at the door while he sealed it. His legs moved before his mind, finished objecting. Corridor J7 was full of smoke and screaming. The pressure door stood open, a massive slab of reinforced steel designed to survive hull breaches. Beyond it, flames painted the walls orange and black. Shadows stumbled through the haze workers in the brown jumpsuits of contract labor, the people who kept stations running and never saw their names in the registry. A woman fell near the doorway, coughing. A man dragged her forward, his face blackened with soot. "Go," Dominic shouted. "Everyone out now." They came through in 1s and 2s. A kid couldn't have been more than 16. An older woman clutching a data pad like it mattered. The heat was intense now, washing through the open door in waves that made Dominic's skin prickle. His headset crackled. Vale, seal it. There's still... The fires reached the recycler intake. 30 seconds before cascade failure. Seal the door. Dominic looked into the smoke. Moved. Shadows, but distant now. Maybe they'd find another way out. Maybe. His hand found the manual lever. Cold metal, soon to be hot. Behind him, someone sobbed with relief, gulping clean air. He pulled the lever. The door shuddered, groaned, began its slow, inevitable slide. Through the narrowing gap, he saw it. A face, close now, running, arms outstretched, mouth open in a silent scream. The door kept moving. The gap narrowed. The face disappeared into smoke. The door sealed with a sound. Like thunder, the alarm stopped. The silence was worse. Dominic stood there, hand still on the lever, and felt nothing at all. Numbness spreading from his chest outward, replacing everything that might have been horror or guilt with a vast gray emptiness. "Good work, Vale," Malkin's voice said. "Report to Observation Deck 7 in 2 hours. You're getting a commendation." Observation Deck 7 had walls of transparent aluminum, offering a view of space that usually made Dominic feel small in a comforting way. Tonight, it just made him feel small. Overseer Malkin stood by the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. He was a compact man, balding, with the permanent squint of someone who'd spent too many years reading reports in dim light. Beside him stood someone else. She was tall, draped in fabric the color of deep space, her face hidden behind a veil of silver mesh. But her posture spoke of authority, shoulders back, shin high, hands folded with the careful precision of someone accustomed to being watched. "Engineer Vale," Malkin said without turning. "Allow me to introduce the envoy from the celestial throne of Astralis." The veiled woman inclined her head fractionally. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth as oil or "Your overseer tells me you saved 437 lives today." Dominic said nothing. His hands smelled like metal and smoke. "Such decisive action deserves reward," the envoy continued. She gestured, and 2 guards stepped forward from the shadows. Between them, they dragged a third figure, small, hooded, stumbling in magnetic shackles that clicked with each forced step. They threw her at Dominic's feet. She hit the deck hard, gasping. The sound was sharp, pained, distinctly real in a way that cut through Dominic's numbness. "The celestial throne recognizes the value of difficult choices," the envoy said. "We, too, make such choices." This creature was being transported to the processing facilities when your fire interrupted our schedule. Consider her compensation for your ... inconvenience. Dominic stared at the crumpled figure. "I don't understand." "She is property now." "Your property." "The 4th daughter of a failed breeding line, contaminated by genetic deviance. Worthless to us. Perhaps useful to you." The guards removed the hood. Dominic's breath caught. Her skin was blue, not painted. Not tattooed, but naturally, impossibly blue. The color of deep ocean water, or the heart of a hydrogen flame. Her face was angular, sharp-featured, younger than he'd expected. Maybe 20 standard years, though who knew how aliens aged. Her hair fell in dark waves to her shoulders, but her eyes were gold. Not amber, not hazel, but genuine metallic gold, reflecting the station lights like polished coins. And they fixed on him with an expression that mixed terror and fury in equal measure. "Don't touch her," the envoy warned. "She's contaminated. Genetic malformation. Physical contact with our kind can trigger ... complications." Malkin nodded. "Keep her secured. We'll arrange proper containment." "That won't be necessary," the envoy said. "She is Vale's responsibility now. How he chooses to manage, that is his concern." She turned to leave, guards following. "Do enjoy your reward, engineer." The door hissed shut. Dominic knelt slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "The girl woman?" Tracked his movement with those golden eyes. "Can you understand me?" he asked. She didn't answer, just stared, breathing hard, shoulders tense beneath the thin gray shift she wore. He reached toward her arm. Intending to help her stand, she swung. The shackles caught him across the jaw, with the force of desperation and rage combined. Metal met bone with a crack that echoed through the empty observation deck. Dominic's head snapped sideways, stars exploding across his vision. He tasted copper, felt warmth spreading through his mouth. When he looked up, she was frozen mid-swing, breathing ragged. A drop of his blood had fallen on her cheek. They both stared at it. Her gold eyes went impossibly wide. "No," she whispered. The first word she'd spoken. Her voice was rough, accented in ways he couldn't place. "No, no, no." She scrambled backward, shackles scraping across the deck, plating until her back hit the wall. She was shaking, staring at her hand where his blood had smeared against her blue skin. Dominic touched his jaw, fingers coming away red. "What? You shouldn't have touched me." Her voice cracked. "They told you not to touch me. I was trying to help." "There is no help." She looked at the blood on her fingers like it was poison, like it was a brand. Only consequences. Something shifted in the air between them. Dominic felt it, a weight settling on his shoulders, invisible but undeniable, like standing in an airlock when the pressure suddenly drops. "What just happened?" he asked. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the terror had been replaced by something that looked like resignation, like grief. "We're bound now," she said quietly. "Blood in silence. Blood on skin. It doesn't matter if you understand." It's already done. Dominic stared at her, at the blood on her cheek, at his blood on her cheek. Bound? He repeated. In my culture, yes. She drew a shaking breath. Congratulations, engineer. You just married a monster. The station hummed around them. Through the viewport, stars turned in their eternal dance, indifferent to the chaos of human or alien affairs. Dominic touched his jaw again, feeling the swelling begin. His face throbbed. His hands still smelled like smoke. And somewhere on Deck 12, people weren't breathing anymore because he'd pulled a lever. He looked at the woman sitting against the wall, shackled and shaking, marked with his blood. What's your name? He asked. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Names are earned. I haven't earned one yet. What do people call you? Defect, flaw, mistake. She met his eyes. Take your pick. Dominic stood slowly, testing his jaw. It would bruise spectacularly. I'm not calling you that. Then call me nothing. It's what I am. He held out his hand carefully, palm up, offering rather than demanding. I'm Dominic. Dominic Vale, and I'm taking you somewhere away from here. She stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached up with shackled wrists and took it. Her skin was cool to the touch, smooth, utterly alien, and somehow completely familiar. Okay, Dominic Vale, she said quietly. Lead the way. He helped her stand, acutely aware of the weight of the shackles, the thinness of her frame, the way she held herself like someone expecting a blow. They walked through the empty observation deck, past the viewport where stars watched in silence. And Dominic wondered if this was another lever he'd just pulled. Another choice that would define him. Another door, ceiling shut behind him. Dominic's quarters were built for one person who didn't mind being alone. A single bunk folded into the wall. A sink with a mirror that had seen better decades. A locker that held everything he owned. 3 jumpsuits. A toolkit, a datapad with engineering manuals. And a picture of Earth he'd never visited but came from. Genetically speaking, he stood in the doorway, suddenly aware of how small the space was. How inadequate, the woman, the defect, the flaw, the thing given to him as payment stood in the center of the room. Shackles still locked around her wrists and turned in a slow circle. Her gold eyes cataloged everything. The Spartan furniture, the emergency manual on the wall. A viewport no bigger than his hand, showing a slice of stars. It's not much, Dominic said. It has a window. Her voice was soft, almost wondering. I haven't seen stars in 3 years. 3 years. The number hung in the air between them like an accusation. Dominic felt something twist in his chest, guilt, maybe, or anger at a system that locked people away from starlight. The bunk pulls down, he said, moving to demonstrate. The hydraulics hissed, and the bed folded out from the wall. You can sleep here. I'll figure something out. She watched him with those unsettling golden eyes. You're giving me your bed. You're injured. You need to rest. I'm property. Property doesn't get beds. The word stung more than her shackles had when they'd split his jaw open. Dominic touched the swelling, felt the throb of pain that reminded him this was real, not some nightmare brought on by smoke inhalation. You're not property, he said. Then what am I? He didn't have an answer for that. She moved to the sink, awkward in her shackles, and stared at her reflection. With careful, deliberate movements, she turned on the water. It sputtered, then ran clear and cold. She cupped her hands as much as the magnetic cuffs would allow and brought water to her face, washing away the blood. His blood. Dominic watched the crimson swirl down the drain and disappear. When she looked up, her face was clean, blue skin luminous in the dim light. The drop of blood was gone, but something had changed. She looked different. Or maybe he was seeing her properly for the first time, not as a reward or a burden, but as a person who'd been dragged through corridors and thrown at his feet and was now standing in his quarters trying to wash away evidence of violence. "I have a medkit," he said. "Your wrists. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've bled before." The statement was matter of fact, delivered without self-pity, which somehow made it worse. Dominic crossed to his locker and pulled out the standard issue medical supplies. Nothing fancy: antiseptic, synthetic skin, pressure bandages designed for vacuum exposure injuries. "At least let me look," he said. She turned slowly, holding out her shackled wrists. The magnetic cuffs had rubbed her skin raw, blue giving way to something darker underneath, not red like human blood, but a deep purple that looked almost black in the shadows. Dominic knelt in front of her, opening the medkit. This might sting. Everything stings. He cleaned the wounds carefully, trying not to press too hard. She didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just stood there like a statue while he worked. Her stillness was unnerving. He'd treated injuries before station life was full of minor accidents, burns and cuts and the occasional decompression ruse, but the people usually reacted, hissed or swore, or at least shifted their weight. She just watched him with those gold eyes. "The shackles need to come off," he said. "They're magnetically sealed. You'd need the Envoy's authorization code. I'm an engineer. I can bypass magnetic seals. Why would you?" The question stopped him mid-reach for his toolkit. He looked up at her, this woman whose name he didn't know, whose culture he didn't understand, whose presence in his quarters was going to complicate his life in ways he hadn't begun to calculate. "Because they're hurting you," he said simply. Something flickered across her face: surprise, maybe, or disbelief. It was gone before he could name it. "If you remove them, the station authorities will know. They're monitored. Let them know. You'll be disciplined." "I've been disciplined before." She studied him for a long moment, and he felt the weight of that golden gaze. "You're either very brave or very stupid, Dominic Vale. Probably both." He pulled out his toolkit, selected a small electromagnetic disruptor. "Hold still." The shackles came off with a soft click and a dying whine of failing magnets. They fell to the floor with a heavy clang that echoed in the small space. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she brought her hands up slowly, staring at her bare wrists like she'd forgotten what freedom looked like. "Thank you," she whispered. Dominic gathered the shackles and tossed them in the corner. They could deal with the consequences later. Right now, he had more immediate concerns, like the fact that his jaw was swelling. His quarters were suddenly occupied by someone he was apparently bound to by blood, and the station was still in crisis mode after the fire. His comm buzzed, Malkin's designation flashing on the screen. "Vale, report to command at 0600. We need to discuss containment protocols for your ... acquisition." Acquisition. As if she were equipment. As if he'd requisitioned her like a new welding torch. Dominic looked at the woman standing in his quarters, rubbing her freed wrists, staring at stars through the tiny viewport. "Copy that," he said into the comm, and switched it off before Malkin could elaborate. She turned from the window. "They're going to take me back." "No, they're not. You can't stop them. You're one engineer on a station of thousands. And we'll figure something out." He moved to the food dispenser, punched in a code. The machine whirred reluctantly and produced 2 ration packs. He handed her one. "When's the last time you ate?" She looked at the pack like it might explode. 2 days ago. They gave us nutrient paste during transport. Gray. Tasted like metal and disappointment. This tastes like cardboard and salt. But it's calories. He tore open his own pack and took a bite of the reconstituted protein bar inside. It did indeed taste like cardboard and salt. She opened hers carefully, extracted the bar, and took the smallest bite possible. Her eyes closed. For a moment, her face relaxed into something that might have been pleasure, or might have been pain at how good something so mediocre tasted after deprivation. "What's your name?" Dominic asked. "Your real name, not what they call you." She chewed slowly, swallowed. "I told you. Names are earned. You existed before they decided you were defective. You had to be called something. Cerise." The word was quiet, almost reluctant. "I was called Cerise. Before." "Before what?" She took another bite, not answering. Dominic waited. He'd learned patience in engineering. Sometimes systems needed time to reboot, to recalibrate, to find their equilibrium. Maybe people were the same. Finally, she spoke. "Before they tested my blood and found the deviation. Before they declared me genetically unsuitable for the throne line. Before they locked me in the breeding assessment center and tried to decide if I was worth keeping alive, or if I should be processed for biological reclamation." The words came out flat, recited like technical specifications. Dominic felt his jaw tighten, the undamaged side anyway. The swollen side just throbbed. "What's the deviation?" he asked. "My blood doesn't carry the royal enzyme. Something about genetic expression and chromosomal alignment. The scientists explained it to me in great detail while they were deciding my fate." She finished the ration bar, folded the wrapper with precise corners. "In practical terms, it means I'm useless. Can't continue the bloodline. Can't be married off for political alliances. Can't even be used as a bargaining chip because no one wants contaminated stock. So they were going to kill you." "Process me," she corrected. "There's a difference, apparently. Killing implies waste. Processing implies efficiency. My organs could be harvested. My bone marrow extracted. My genetic material studied to prevent future deviations. Very practical. Very tidy." Dominic's hands clenched around his own wrapper, crumpling it. "That's murder with bureaucratic language." "Yes," Cerise said simply. "But bureaucratic language makes it legal." She moved to the bunk, sat down carefully, like she expected it to collapse or vanish. When it held, she let out a breath she might have been holding for hours. "You should rest," Dominic said. "I'll take the floor. Where will you sleep?" "I've slept in worse places. Engineering crawl spaces. Maintenance shafts. One time I passed out in a ventilation duct during a double shift." He grabbed his spare jumpsuit from the locker, folded it into a makeshift pillow. "Floor's not so bad." Cerise watched him arrange his sleeping spot with an expression he couldn't quite read. "The bond," she said quietly. "You asked what happened when your blood touched me." Dominic paused. "Yeah, in my culture, blood exchange is sacred. It's how warriors swear oaths. How families adopt outsiders. How—" She hesitated. "How marriages are sealed. Marriages. The word doesn't translate perfectly. It's more like permanent binding. Soul deep. Until death or formal dissolution. Which requires both parties' consent, and usually a lengthy ritual involving fire and the blessing of 3 priestesses." Dominic sat down on his makeshift bed, back against the wall. "And we did this by accident. Blood on skin. Skin to skin. Silent witness. The stars through the viewport counted as witness, by the way. All the necessary elements." She looked down at her hands. "In the old stories, bonds formed in violence are the strongest. And the most cursed. Cursed how?"